Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right. ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Anyway, join me after. If you want to stay tuned, even if you want to call in, we're going to change the mood somewhat now with talk of the euthanasia legislation that looks like it's going to come here into Portugal. Well, okay, before we begin the Iberian FM phone-in, and I find the right ticker tape, 913-590-303. You can call in on WhatsApp. You can send a message. If you feel a little bit uncomfortable or nervous about speaking live on air, and many people do, it's understandable, you might want to record a WhatsApp message. I am putting great trust and faith in you that if you record a WhatsApp message, it will be okay for me to play live on air. Don't you dare, anybody. And thank you for, is this the first comment coming in for the Iberian FM phone-in today? A little guff cloud. Thank you very much for that, Lord Gilchrist. Antonio F telling us that tomorrow is Dia Mundial de Internet. So it's Global Internet Day. Every day's Internet Day for us. Live stream tomorrow morning from the Tuck In on the A2 outside Sittingbourne in Kent. Do you know that, Mrs. M? And let me just turn up your microphone so you can say that again.
Actually, I do.
Okay, the Tuck In. That's a nice little pun that's been pleasing people.
Sittingbourne's literally just down the road from where I grew up.
Wow.
I was going to add sadly, but that's not fair or kind.
That is not fair or kind.
No, it's not. But yes, I do hail from that neck of the woods.
Okay, and give us your live stream details then, if you will, please. I should really look at this. Maybe tomorrow, Seth changes making the system more capable. Wouldn't be difficult. I could add a little bit sarkily there. But I'm hastily looking for the euthanasia articles from both the Portugal News and the Portugal Resident. Pope was unhappy about the what he's describing as the kill laws, or the laws to kill. So we will come back to those in just a moment after we've addressed a few more of your comments on the screen. So tomorrow, International Global Internet Day, maybe Galactic Internet Day. Well, you asked about the face. Have a good day. Yeah, I know. We did ask about it. And I will arrange more plants tomorrow for you to test your psychological state. You're welcome. I had tea at the cafe today for the first time in a week. Glad you're on the mend, Tea Duck. So good to hear that. And it must have been lovely after that to break from the cafe to be there again. How nice would that be? One time I thought I was wrong, but then I realized I was right. Phew, close, Darren. I am usually right. Ask my wife. And have to go, says Antonio F. See you all tomorrow. See you then. And I am visiting Rainham, Kent this evening. What should the ancient marriage... why?
What are you doing in Rainham? I'm sorry, that's a bit
personal, rude.
Sorry, ancient
and
mariner.
Somewhat emotive.
Like if he comes up with my address, that's going to be really weird. Or my parents' address. He says, "Yes, I'm going to
Chlamydia Close." As I affectionately call it, and as you told your parents,
my parents,
not soon after I met them, and I'm not sure that was ever the best thing to do. It sounds like you're an incorporeal spirit. She's AI. She's not really sat next to me.
I've
got
AI
this new
has used
program
my voice, and it's now pretending to be
responding.
me. And it's
pretty good.
Responding in quite an acerbic and biting way at times.
So it's actually very accurate in that case.
It's really studied me very well.
Yes, it's like my subconscious, says Lord Gilchrist. Okay, lines are open. 913-590-303. Pope not happy about this. Let us take a look then. A Pope very sad, in fact, over what he is describing as no, it's not. It's not one of those local newspaper pictures of somebody looking.
AI could have generated a picture for that very.
ChatGPT, give us a sad-looking Pope. Okay, seriously for a minute now. Pope very sad over law to kill. The Pontiff evokes apparitions in Fatima to criticise Portugal's euthanasia law. Now, this is an unusual and high-risk strategy, I would say. Pope Francis used yesterday's celebrations in Fatima of May the 13th, the apparitions of Our Lady, to violently criticise Portugal's legislation of euthanasia. As the farewell procession took place in Fatima, involving more than 200,000 pilgrims, nearly 1,800 kilometers away in the Vatican, Pope Francis did not hold back, say reports. And this is Natasha Don writing on the 14th of May. Today, I am very sad, he says, because a law to kill has been enacted in a country where Our Lady appeared. One more step in the long list of countries that have approved euthanasia, he said, addressing hundreds of representatives of the World Union of Catholic Women's Organizations, where he referred specifically of the celebrations of May the 13th, recalling the day on which the apparitions of the Virgin Mother to the little shepherds of Fatima are celebrated. Thinking of the Virgin, let us look to Mary as a model of a woman par excellence who lives in the fullness, a gift and a task, the gift of maternity and the task of caring for her children in the church, he said. The Pope, due to be in Portugal for World Youth Day in August and scheduled to visit the Shrine of Fatima, stressed that Mary teaches to generate life and always protect it. I could read more, but you might want to respond to this. We can come back to that one because I want to tell you how the president feels about it.
I'd like to know, I mean, what laws have actually changed? Like, obviously you can't just kill yourself for any old reason, unless that is actually what they said you can do.
Oh, I see what you mean. But let's look at
what are the parameters.
Let's look at the facts here. People can end their lives at will, can they not? What we're talking about here with euthanasia is the legal and medical and I suppose all sorts of other aspects of making sure that it's a considered and right decision for the individual concerned.
It's interesting that they're doing that in alignment with the plans for making 15-minute cities.
Oh my goodness! How did you manage to do that? How did you manage to do that? Okay, my subconscious will answer that in just a moment. Parliament confirms euthanasia decree vetoed by President. Parliament has today, this is the 12th of May in the Portugal news, Parliament has today confirmed the decree on medically assisted death. Okay, so it's interesting and useful to get the language right, isn't it?
Yeah.
The word promulgation has been used, and I often think obfuscation is what is going on when terms that are not normally in our common parlance are used.
Yeah.
It's as though, as my father used to say, BS baffles brains. If you chuck in a word that's not used very often, you're trying to confuse people or raise the tone or do something anyway. Parliament has today
glamorize it.
Glamorize, possibly. Parliament has today confirmed the decree on medically assisted death, which has been vetoed by the President of the Republic with a total of 129 votes in favour, forcing its promulgation. Why would they use the word promulgation? Why would they just not say
how many votes are there
or promote? Well, I'll tell you, you're right on this. You are asking the questions that are answered in the next paragraph. According to the Constitution of the Republic, in the face of a veto, which the president has done, I don't think he's happy about it, Parliament can confirm the text by an absolute majority of the deputies in office, 116 out of 230. Now, that sounds to me like a majority, but not an absolute majority. That's just a couple, that's just enough, isn't it? Rather than absolute. The word absolute seems a misuse in my estimations there. And in this case, the President of the Republic will have to promulgate the diploma within 8 days from its receipt. Just 2 paragraphs there. The comment from Joe in the Anantasia says, let's pray for 8 days. If anyone wants to read an imaginative alternative to this law being passed, try Lee Child's Make Me. That's the what are those movies? Jack Reacher, isn't it? If your stomach can handle it. Always good to look to art and literature and film sometimes to have these stories of humanity reflected to us in imaginative ways. I don't know that particular text. Make me. I don't know if anyone else does who's watching here. Sorry, I zoned out when the talk of religion started. Ooh. Lord Gilchrist
airporting his way out of the conversation.
A little bit. He's back though. To be fair, isn't he? Back to be fair there. It's a
very emotive thing. I mean, I wonder if these changes that are being signed into law, I wonder if they are impacted by the other decisions that are going on in other places of the world. For instance, in Canada recently, they've set some kind of legal precedent that a child, i.e. someone under the age of 18, can legally be euthanized without the parents say so. Right. They just need like the permission of a doctor. So they've put in some things, and I wonder if there is this kind of worldwide spread to change. I wonder if Portugal would have done this were it not for what other countries around the EU were considering. Like, has this been pushed by the EU? It seems an odd thing to do in a Catholic country.
Are you talking about what other agendas might be at work here?
Not specifically, but noticing, like there are lots of, one of the things I really enjoyed studying when I was at school was the sanctity of life issues.
Yes.
And I don't consider myself to be religious, but I do really enjoy talking about sort of is life precious? And if so, what do we do?
Yes.
And, if life is precious, I think there's a lot of different discussions going on at the moment. And one of them that really springs to mind is this idea of mandates and that other people can get involved in your life. In terms of like 15-minute cities, it seems to be something that has, almost like the mandates and lockdowns and things were almost testing the ground for things like 15-minute cities. Where there's this idea that the government can have a say as to what happens. Yeah. And I'm noticing in other countries that there's a lot of say-so. There's a lot of new permissions for children and the legal setups to ensure that parents can't get involved. There's almost like a separation from parents and their children and the state getting in between. And I wonder if this euthanasia piece is part of a bigger picture.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm taking it a bit off. I mean, we spoke very recently with somebody whose grandmother had chosen to euthanize herself.
Yes.
In Belgium, and it was a really beautiful conversation. And what I learned from that is that euthanasia can be beautiful.
But it wasn't for everybody concerned, was it?
No.
This is. I don't think this is a way of making everything okay.
No, I think
it is a way of managing some of the compromises of life, perhaps for some people in a more elegant and manageable way.
Yeah.
But there is criticism of the Belgian system, whereby I think that people have been unhappy with decisions that have been made. And I'll pursue. I mean, what a horrible mess to be in. If you're unhappy with somebody's decision in Belgium, they go ahead and do what they want to do. And I think people are taking action against the government or the doctors involved with that. So, I mean, it is a horrible situation.
I guess a lot of it depends. I mean, it boils down to the question: do we have our own autonomy, and when does our own autonomy start?
Well, that's a different debate, but it is.
Well, it is, but it's also
here.
Related. If you look at abortion laws, there are ideas that we have around abortion, and they're just either ends of the spectrum, aren't they? One is the right. The right to exist, and the other is the right to not exist.
Yeah, and control of your own body and life.
Yeah.
Let's not extend into that right now. We could have that conversation another day. But
we could be talking about that for the rest of our lives.
We could. People, and people will for sure. People are sovereign, says Squire of the Shires. They always had the right of what they can do. It's their choice as an individual, not the state. And that's possibly what you're suggesting here. That is it more of an issue for you that people get the choice rather than what they choose to do.
No, I think choice is important. What I am suspicious about, and I'll hold my hands up to that, being quite cynical, is that once these laws are passed, is it part of a change to change the current narrative in a way? Like, is there a much bigger picture? Is there a much bigger picture that's coming? For instance, like the changes that have been going on in Canada are almost, as they were reported in the news, and I think it was reported in the news almost as a test bed to see what people were going to say and how they were going to react. But there's this idea that there are some lives that are worth living and some that aren't. And as we saw in the, I'm going to call it the phenomenon of COVID, there was a huge, for instance, people in homes, people with older relatives, they were asked to sign DNRs, like do not resuscitate. It was almost, forced on them. We spoke to people who had, who were pressured into signing do not resuscitate orders. And we know that was also rolled out to individuals with additional needs in the UK, so people who are perceived as maybe not having the full right to live, or I don't know, but there's this whole idea of like value, like who deserves to live and who doesn't. And I wonder if when they bring in these laws about, yes, it's okay to euthanize, then all of a sudden there's a different kind of conversation going on. So if in these 15-minute cities, all of a sudden there's too many old people, and Portugal has got one of the eldest populations.
All right, I've got to stop you because I think you have a feeling about something.
Yeah, I have.
And you're possibly using the circumstances to justify that feeling.
Possibly,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
but what I would add is it is only speculation. It is only fear. We don't actually. How can we know if that is actually the case?
Well, we can't.
Right.
I always just think, oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting point of view that this is happening.
Yes.
And I think, oh, that's another interesting point of view. And then, oh, it looks like there's a bit of a chain effect of this change of public narrative going on.
And would you agree that it's you that's making the connection then from those?
But I mean, in terms of the connections that I make, funnily enough, and I'm not saying they're accurate all the time, using that joke from your previous show, I'm right 98% of the time and not the other 3.
Yes.
I think it is worth considering what is going on.
And you
I don't think this is going to directly affect me.
Well, that's what I'm more interested in.
And I'm more interested actually in how it could serve the people who don't feel like their lives are worth living.
Yeah, well,
or that they want some kind of control and dignified end to their life. And I think that is important. I just got lots of different conflicting views.
You have, and you've poured them upon me there, and I will endeavour to make sense of them. Doctors,
well, that's okay. I can see you've got lots of comments coming in.
Doctors already signed. I'm not sure what you mean there, Darren, either, and that's probably the limitations of our medium here. Is we've got lots of different comments and ideas, and then we pursue the meaning of those ideas and comments, and it can get in quite a mess. Including this one, literally, if you blow your brains out, some poor sod has to clean you up. Euthanasia is much more humane as we do it with sick animals. Wow.
Yeah, and
that is.
And Andrew, you're right. If somebody goes down the actual process of euthanasia, they may well get the chance to reflect. It gives them a little bit of time to really consider if that's what they want to do before it's enacted.
Whereas the animals don't. With the owners. Well, thank goodness we don't have owners, or don't appear to have owners.
We have owners.
Okay, another speculation Mrs. M is adding there and joining this is what's called joining the dots, isn't it, by the awake?
I don't.
You were going to go, and I lured you back in then, didn't I?
I don't really like the terms awake or woke or sheep or sleep. Because I don't necessarily think they're very helpful.
Yeah, and I'm trying to have a phone in here about Portugal and euthanasia. And inevitably, it will bring up these other connected issues.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I think in the absence of open conversation, the things come out that can be kind of tangentially attached to what's being spoken about. I see this a lot in phone-ins, and I know that generally speaking, phone-in producers police the callers very strongly to talk about what the radio station wants them to talk about. So it's either pro the issue or against the issue, and the phone-in host will manage that for and against. For me, I mean, the basis of what we're talking about is things that ideas and views that wouldn't normally be talked about in mainstream media, with an open heart and an open mind. And that's quite a big brief, and that's what we endeavor to do. And clearly, I don't think we've got enough time to, this is one of those where I have really bitten off more than I can chew, and I think we should continue this tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And because there's, just that, if you blow your brains out, some poor sod has to clean you up. Is that enough to say, okay, well, we'll have, because it makes a mess when someone kills themselves, does that necessarily mean we should then make euthanasia a possibility? That is an understandable but not necessarily useful way of bringing law about, because it's better than something else. You could argue that the legal system is terrible from the point of view that one law is added to try and deal with something else. Laws should be purer than that, in my view, and should reflect, the deepest possible ethics that we can embrace and discuss, rather than just being a fix, like a software patch. A lot of law seems to be a software patch. I know a lot of Portuguese politicians feel very strongly about it. The Portuguese president himself doesn't want this to happen. I don't think wants a euthanasia on the statute books or that process. And honestly, I don't even know what it means here in this country. I don't know what the process will be. That's why it's important to have the conversation. We can use the big term euthanasia or assisted dying, but what will it mean? What if they pass the legislation here in Portugal? And perhaps this is where we need someone who really knows what they're talking about to come and talk about it on the show.
It's
here.
Interesting. Darren has put, doctors already signed DNR papers. You've just gone past it.
Yeah.
They already signed DNR papers at the moment.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, like with euthanasia, you may well find that the definitions are that the person is of sound mind, to be able to sign it. But then what happens if people who are signing to euthanize themselves or be euthanized, they're of sound mind, but their bodies might be in a certain way.
My stepfather did that. They were insisting on DNR paperwork because they fear languishing in old folks facilities.
But then what happens?
My mum, every time my mum goes to the GP, she says, "You have got my DNR on file," and the doctor will say, "It was only a checkup."
But what happens then when doctors en masse start seeing people who are in really, really poor health and who are not,
we don't know. How will we ever know what will happen?
Who are not mentally fit enough to, who are not deemed mentally fit enough to be able to make that decision? If it becomes common practice that we can let go of people who are mentally sound with this kind of ailment in their body and they don't want to continue to live, it's only a short step away when they say, okay, that person's not sound of mind, but look at their quality of life, all these other people are ending it because of this. Do we keep them alive? Who has the right to say? I think the lines could get really blurred.
All right, before we go to the Ancient Mariners contribution, which we have, which is excellent, and Johnny and Darren's further comments, what I'm hearing is that you have a fear about something, and you're seeing the implementation of these laws as a way to get to that thing you fear.
Say that again.
You have a fear about how humans are going to behave and a kind of society that is emerging. And you see each of these issues, what you mentioned, Canada, we're talking about Portugal specifically here. You see, and DNR, do not resuscitate protocols. You see each of these things as a step towards a world in which you fear and don't want to live in and disapprove of.
No, I don't fear living in it. I'm here. My body has chosen to be here. I've chosen to be here. And I think that's right. I'm noticing, like, for instance, a slight subject change, which I know you're not wanting.
Stop it.
But I was considering the idea that there's hundreds of thousands of excess deaths around the world that are happening right now for no apparent reason, all-cause mortality. The rise of excess deaths has shot through the roof in the last 2 years.
Well, that's what I'm suggesting. So you're bringing another thing in.
Yeah, but these are all connected. So if we just like go back a few years, there was this big old hoo-ha. People can't die. Therefore, we have to change our behaviors to ensure that people don't die.
Yes.
A mere 2 years later, all of a sudden, vast numbers of extra people are dying across the board. There's a massive spike in cancers, a massive spike in strokes and heart attacks. And at the same time, in the same 2-year period, the amount of live births has decreased on average 10% around the world. In some places, it's like 18%. In others, it's 8%. The last time we saw
Please make a connection with Portugal and euthanasia.
Yes, okay. So there's deaths at both ends of the spectrum that are unexpected happening right now. And at the same time, the governments around the world appear to be in some kind of lockstep, making new rules to allow further death and also justify extended abortion rights.
I'm still not seeing a connection.
So, okay, well, I'm seeing a connection.
Right.
So what's happening in the last 3 years, massive amounts of people are dying or not being born.
Yes.
Which is a huge civilization change, which the media are not actively reporting on at the moment. So we can't fully see the impact of it. But give it 5 years, give it 10 years. If it carries on exponentially, there's going to be a much lower population. At the same time, there's 15-minute cities being introduced. Because of there's too many people on this planet, allegedly, according to the people making up or purporting this. And if you say anything to contradict it, you are put down, excluded, and censored. Because,
not here,
because
you've just said it.
That is what they say is happening. That there is too many people, and we can't sustain it. And at the same time, there are people around the world advocating to shorten people's lives at will, and also advocating that more babies can be terminated before birth.
Okay, so
I think that's a huge connection.
Right.
I'm surprised that you're even questioning me about it. That more people are dying, less are being born at the same time, when legally the governments are all creating legislation to ensure that more people are able to die and less people are able to be born.
So you believe there's an agenda?
I think
a governmental agenda to get rid of people, and the Portugal.
I'm not saying there's a governmental agenda per se, but I'm saying that's a pattern.
Right.
Because it is a pattern, and it's all correlated in the same time frame.
Okay.
Is that coincidence? Who knows? I wonder what other people think.
Let's find out, and we may have to carry this forward to tomorrow. Thank you, Johnny, for this. Yes, agree. It's a difficult situation here in Belgium, especially for the euthanization, if that's what it's called, for minors and also for mental reasons. So it can happen in Belgium by the sound of it. And I don't know how close the Portuguese model or protocol will be to the one in Belgium, which doesn't sound like it's working especially well. Apart from the people who wanted it to happen, the lawmakers and those who want to take advantage, and that's not a very good way of putting it, but those people who want to not be here anymore in their physical bodies and are able to take the process. And I don't know if this is what you mean, Stephen, but in that situation or in suicide, it's the rest of us that have to deal with the loss, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's true whichever way they go, of course, but perhaps it adds insult to injury if people decide on the route of euthanasia. Not only we haven't lost them by some sort of twist of fate, but by their own will. That might make the whole grieving more difficult, if that's what you mean, Stephen. We'll draw this to a close, but I think I
have to say, I'm really not averse to it necessarily. I'm noticing the patterns.
Okay.
So I do want that to be known. I think people should have choice.
Trudeau in Canada is too broadening its scope to include the poor, disillusioned and homeless, less wasteful eaters, carbon emitters. I think on a similar page to you there,
I suspect
Mrs.
so,
M.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure about this. My view on this is that a lot of these, I think I've got my own conspiracy theory about this. My conspiracy theory about the things we see from Canada, Belgium, whenever there's a news article put to us, if you like, in certain news agendas, it's designed to upset. and I can see it's working.
It's true.
I can see it's working. These stories are, and it looks like Trudeau's very happy to be the subject of these stories. But then again, he probably doesn't have much choice in it.
What are you saying? Are you saying?
I've owned it as a conspiracy theory, but I think most of this is designed just to create upset.
Yeah.
My aim with what we're doing here is not to further upset. It is to look at why people are upset and look at what's behind that. You know, will they be in a perpetual state of upset, or will they be able to see something transcendent and useful behind or beyond what's going on? Thank you, Ancient Mariner. Let's have a listen to what you're saying on this matter. I trust you completely to have sent a useful message.
Carl, good morning to everybody on the live cast. I think touching on the topic of euthanasia, the point being raised about my body, my decision, it's a question of dignity. And I think quality of life can only be judged subjectively. It's surely my decision whether I want to continue living or not. I've had a series of aunts and uncles, and my own mother died over the last decade, and every one of them has been concerned, troubled, caught out, surprised by their decrepitude at the end of their days. And I think at least several of them would have been far happier making a conscious decision before it all went downhill and before they became dependent upon other people. And I think in my own case, I would feel conceptually much happier deciding the time of my passing. Now, all right, when the day comes, perhaps I'll look at it in a different light. But right now, I can see a lot of merit in self-selected euthanasia. And I do think there's a difference between putting sick animals down. As you pointed out, the sick animals don't have a choice. In fact, if they did, they might have done it long before they got to the state where it needed to be administered to them.
Yes.
Anyway, there you go.
Thank you very much. We enjoy that. Enjoy might not be the right word, but it's a great facility to be able to record a WhatsApp message and make your contribution. We will do a part 2 on this. I didn't mute you for any particular reason.
Yeah. I think that was very sensitively done by the Ancient Mariner, and I agree. I do think. I mean, the story we heard from our pal whose grandmother euthanized herself.
Yes,
it was done in such a respectful and beautiful way, and she didn't really have any physical issues, other than, you know, she got to a stage where she needed to have somebody wipe her bottom, and you know, she'd lived a great life and was just done with it. She had her own ideas. She was in her 90s, and I do think dying with dignity is important. I'm just, I'm a bit curious about other things.
My mother was subject to a DNR, says Darren, because they decided she was not suitable. These are the operative phrases here, aren't they? Decided, and she was not suitable for any further treatment. So the doctors did sign that off. That to me is a little bit chilling, but for what it's worth.
Isn't that what happened with your stepdad?
Coming to terms with our own mortality is a process and not an event. I would prefer to bow out on a high rather than waiting for the otherwise inevitable crash and burn. The word that I picked up on, and I don't know if that's what happened with my stepdad, it's another can of worms. And if the accusation is that he was killed off by doctors, I would also add that he was probably happy to go.
Yeah.
So they might have been doing him a favor that he was glad of, but I don't know. I wasn't there. I mean, I prefer not to speculate. Not about that anyway. Coming to terms with our own immortality, our own mortality of the physical body, we should add as well. On another level, we may well be immortal. And with the sort of output you're coming up with at the moment, Ancient Mariner, I suspect your ideas and contributions will live on far longer than your physical body. How does that work? You will exist, if not physically, then you will conceptually. And that was the word you used. Conceptually is really important, I think, in this context. The concept, euthanasia, and how we're thinking about it is conceptual, isn't it? And you make a very wise point. I think how you might feel about it should that day come, I think, is a very different matter. So very, very, very grateful for your input, Ancient Mariner, on this. Like the man says, very sad that the people are allowing governments to implement these policies that places so little value for human life and each one's possibilities. I've always said the government does not really care for you. It's a numbers game. If you are Trudeau, Sunak, Biden, and you preside over the lives of millions of people, you're probably not going to be able to consider each and every one of them like a little treasure that we are. You're going to be thinking about numbers, and power and numbers and financial agendas don't make for very good decisions, including what TDUC says. Governments around the world have proven themselves over and over to be unable to make proper choices for individuals. It's the best I've got to say amen to that comment. And I recognize your conversation discussion, Carl, and Miss M. She sees the bigger picture.
Who said that?
Johnny says that about you.
Thank you.
And well said, Louisa and Carl. We think you are both on the right track. Thanks. Yikes. Okay. Well, this will continue. It's 11:15.
Bless you all, and thank you for being here. Whilst we're having these conversations, because that's what we really believe in, is that the conversation should take place.
Well,
yes. Would you agree with
absolutely. That's exactly the point. I'm open and hoping for people to be able to share their view on this.
You're hoping.
I'm hoping. The idea is through conversation that we evolve our understanding. Okay. Now, of course, that can begin with triggering and upset and anger and all those things that humans are very good at. And then if we stay with it, if we clean up, if we persist, if we seek to understand each other, we might evolve our own point of view, because ultimately that's all we've got, isn't it? Is our own point of view on these things. And I hope that can be, what's the word? Edified. That is my intention. It is not to be controversial or polarizing, although it could easily seem like that sometimes, and it can get heated and difficult. Might get ugly. But the endeavor, you can count on me for that being my motivation to push through all that nonsense, because I think that's what it is ultimately. An upset into the more perennial, ancient, and transcendent values that I believe unite us all. We might just be a little bit a long way from that at the moment, but that shouldn't stop us trying. Mrs. M is not barred from the screen, in case that's what anyone's thinking. She can speak at will, and there's her hand to prove it. That's not AI. ChatGPT, create a hand that strokes my face during the show. Mrs. M, last word to you, because you've had much to say on this.
I really like how you were just wrapping that up. I think when life is in the balance and all the sanctity of life issues are not being discussed, but feel like they're being mandated on or somehow determined outside of our own self. That to me is saying, we need to determine more about our life. Maybe humans have become very complacent about the joy of life and the cycles of life and what goes on. And so, as all of these things happen, all that happens to me is I think, we're being called to really think about how sacred is life, what it means to us, and just to appreciate every moment. So that's where I'd end it.
Excellent. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
I think we should continue this tomorrow. See you then. Thank you so much for your excellent contributions and for being here for more than 2 hours. I've had to be, so why shouldn't you? Ciao, ciao.
Hello, saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
Hello, saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.